Hey, welcome to my channel. So let's get one thing straight. Basically, yes, 2020 can be hindsight in the situation, but in reality is like I don't think anyone expected this to happen. Quite honestly, I mean, from the perspective of Seth Lugo, I mean, honestly, I always thought he was more of a middle reliever as well too, not a starter. I mean, when he went to San Diego, he wasn't doing that so great. The fact that both Seth Lugo and Zach Wheeler are essentially candidates for Cy Youngs this year, and to the point where like Zach Wheeler was always in the top seven in the for the past 3 years for Cy Young for the Cy Young award shows like yeah maybe the Mets did goof, but in reality it's 2020 hindsight. From my perspective though, I always thought that Zach Wheeler the Mets should have signed him, but based on his longevity or durability, not longevity, but his durability. Yeah, I could see why the Mets had concerns. Quite honestly, Brody Van, whatever his name is, Van Thiessen or something like that. I forgot his name now. Honestly, I forgot the dude that basically uh, brought in basically Brody Van Wagner or Wagner. He's the one that brought in Diaz, surrendering Kalanick, which looking back now, looks like it's a good deal. The fact is, the Mets didn't, Kalanick is not doing much. He had to go to the Braves, basically. But the fact is, like, he's the one that said let Wheeler go. Unclear as to why. I mean, he might have recognized something that we didn't recognize, but in reality is look what happens now. Wheeler is doing really well. He's kind of like the ace on the Phillies staff. It makes you wonder if, like, had he been retained with the Mets, him and Degrom together, what would have happened as a result? And this aspect as well too is like Seth Lugo was shifted to the starting position, starting pitcher. What would have happened then as well too? But in reality is like again 2020 hindsight because like I didn't think Seth Lugo was gonna do this good. I mean like based on what you saw last year as well too, and like I was like I guess it was good that the Mets let him go. But in reality is it is again. But it's always going to be a case like let's look at it from the perspective of Severino. You think the Yankees would have like if the Yankees would have known this is what how Severino was going to be, they would have like let him sign with the Mets. I think they would have just re-signed him for one more year basically. So he definitely adds value to the Mets from that perspective. But honestly, I want to say this is it would be interesting to see how Stearns sets up the rest of the Mets farm system to the point where can he help build them out to what like the Brewers have basically as well as the Dodgers. Like they both have really good, really good prospects. It would be good if the Met, if basically Stearns can actually build that for the Mets. But the thing is, I think it comes down to not also the fact that Stearns, but also comes down to the scouts. How good are the scouts? Does the scouting system need to be rebuilt? Essentially, because honestly, it's one of those things where like you have some aspects where like it's usually hits or misses, but I think more it's more of a case where like yeah, like similar how VC funding works from a perspective of from I guess you could say from a perspective of how like sometimes they'll put money into whatever and they're hoping that hits big and one of them becomes a unicorn in the VC world, similar to the draft, just like the drafts as well too, like in drafting in football, baseball, hockey, as well as baseball. So that's the same situation. But the thing is, I feel like the fact is like in an aspect of the baseball world, you've got not only the college world and the high school world, but you've got the international world as well too. So it becomes a much wider variety of selections and picks that you can get. I'm wondering is like why can't I mean granted yeah in the high school world you're trying to look for talent and then like hey this could be a great talent but in reality is like is it I think it's more of a case where like let the Mets should be focusing more on college players than high school players. Why? Because it's very rare to get those generational talent type of people, basically like a Bryce Harper and such. It's more so to the point where, like, you know what? Honestly, they might do well, but the thing is like, whoever's playing in the high school world. Problem is like it's the high school world. It's not as great of competition unless they're in a league or a division that is mostly competitive with a lot more stars. Whereas in the college world, at least it increases up a little bit at that point. Like at least it definitely the talent pool is much higher at that point. So your competition is much more better at that point at that and from that perspective. And like that's why in this year's draft, it seems like the first 12 picks practically that most people are thinking of right now, they all could have been number ones in other years. So it'll be interesting to see how this draft pick works. I wish the Mets could somehow. I wish in Major League Baseball you can kind of trade draft for draft picks, but fortunately you can't. The fact that the Mets were over the cap, I'm hoping and praying that the Mets scouts can actually pick up some players and get some players that can help come and contribute to the Mets within 2 years. If they can do that, that'd be great. And specifically pitching. I think right now, I mean, yeah, granted, you go for the best player that's available. You don't go for what the need is, but the best player available, the best talent, which makes absolute sense. I'm not going to deny that. If you're going to see a generational talent like a Shohei Ohtani or Juan Soto, you're going to take him over a pitcher because, like, you have weak pitching, but if you have that shot, you're going to take it. I will do the exact same thing as well too, and you hope you can build some pitchers off here and there. Problem is with pitching, it's hard to sign for pitchers. I mean, pitchers you would say are a dime a dozen, but they're not because the problem is once you sign them and once they become free agents, unless they're free agents in their mid 20s, you're really getting them just around the time of their tail end of their prime years. And are you really willing to pay for that? I mean, yeah, nowadays conditioning works at the point where like, and of course, inning pitch counts and such extend their longevity. But in reality, is like I miss the days when pitchers pitched 200 plus, pitches, up to full, complete games and whatnot. I mean, it'd be great if that would happen, but I don't think we're going to see that because it's a matter of like investments into the players themselves. But I'll leave it at that. But again, 2020 hindsight. You guys are welcome to leave a comment in the comment section about it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think the Mets the scouting system needs to be replaced? Stern, I know, is putting some parts into it, but maybe rebuild it from scratch so that they can get proper or draft. I almost hit my foot. Draft appropriate players when it comes time for it. As well as, the fact is like signing international players as well, too. That's another big factor, too. If they can sign international players, that'd be great. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Again, I read all my comments. I do respond to them when they warrant a response. With that, I'll leave it at that. And sorry about the background blurring thing. I'm using OBS. I'm testing out the filters part, and like it's definitely a little bit issue-y when it comes to blurring. But outside of that, I'll leave it at that. If you like my channel, like my content, like my videos, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you like this video, please hit like if you like it. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and of course, always unrehearsed. Until next time.